We are here with episode 95 on the Air Hug Community Podcast, and we are saying F you to aging gracefully. Hello there and welcome or welcome back. If you are new here, this is the Air Hug Community Podcast, and I am your host, Judy Arizosa. I am a midlife lady who is someone who loves to share stories from myself and special guests that reflect on just how midlife really goes, not how we think it should go. We talk about the good, the bad, the messy, the ugly, the wonderful, all the emotions. And this is a place where we actually can grow from our experiences. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Okay, are you ready to roll? I'm going to start out talking a little bit today about a study that I actually read this a few years ago, and then it was brought to my attention again, and so I want to talk about it. It's about coffee. People love to either idolize or demonize coffee, and now I'm here to say that if you happen to already like coffee and you love to drink it, don't worry about it, because here is a quick summary of a study. Nearly 500,000 British people were part of this study, and 75% of them were coffee drinkers. The average age of them was 57. And over a 10-year follow-up period, the results of this study indicate that there is a decreased risk of death for any cause for coffee drinkers. And if you drink 1 cup a day, they found that your risk of death for any cause went down 6%. And they found that people who drank 8 cups, their risk for death, according to this study of nearly 500,000 people, 75% of which were coffee drinkers, their risk for death went down 14%. So, okay, brew me a cup of coffee, baby. So, by the way, this study was adjusted for age, sex, race, smoking, body mass index, alcohol use/abuse, and other factors. So, speaking of living longer, I mean, who doesn't want to, right? But how do you want to live longer? That's what I'm here to talk about today. And there's this cliche going around about living gracefully. So I set out to do a little bit of research on that and find out just what people mean when they're talking about aging gracefully. And I found it to be very interesting. So, according to surgery.org, aging gracefully means women choosing to grow older without any aesthetic procedures. Okay, well, I can see them thinking that. Other sources say that someone who isn't looking as good as they once did. Really? Anyways. And it's more about inner worth. Actually, here's a quote. Is that a quote? And I didn't write down the lady's name, but I'll get it. Aging gracefully doesn't rely on expensive beauty rituals alone. It's so much more about inner work than aesthetics and aesthetic treatments. So I want to grab her name. Hold on. That's on my other notes because I figure she should get credit for that. Her name is Brittany Chaff. And she wrote an article about aging gracefully on witandDelight.com. I just kind of pulled it from the article, but the article isn't really what I want to talk about today. What I want to say is forget what you have heard about aging gracefully. All right. It is an attitude, but here's the thing. It misses the point. Okay? As if you want to omit aesthetics or you don't worry about it. It's just, I think this whole movement of aging gracefully is just another thing to give people anxiety, guilt, and shame over. All right? And this is the thing. Who cares if you want to aesthetically change your looks or not? You know, it doesn't mean if you do that, let's say, you know, you get Botox. Does that mean you're not aging gracefully? I mean, and according to who? So I just think that's a BS. Anyways, instead of challenging yourself to age gracefully, whatever that means, and I really don't know what that means, but those are just some of the definitions I came up with, but I just see it thrown out there on social media all the time. And I'm like, why are people posting this? Are they just trying to get more likes? Are they trying to, what's going on? So here's my challenge for you as you age. Instead of trying to age gracefully, like I said, whatever that means, you can challenge yourself to age joyfully. And I think you know what that means, right? You know when you feel joyful, right? That doesn't really, you don't have to look that up on the internet. Everyone knows what it's like to feel joy and to want to feel joy. So how can you steer your life in a direction so that you age joyfully? Well, I've got 5 little things to tell you today. And these are things I came up with on my own. Yay me. But, I mean, I've lived for a few years, so I think I'm a valid person to say this. So anyways, if you are driving, don't try to write these down, or if you're out for a great walk, just when you come back, pick up again at minute 7:15 here, and you can find these 5 things right in here. So I don't want you to worry about it. Just relax, enjoy, listen to them now, and if you want to rehear these 5 things, like I said, you can pick right up at minute 7:15. Number 1 is to own your individuality. You are who you are. There is no one exactly like you, and that is such an asset. So why not let you shine through instead of trying to look or feel or act like you think you're supposed to act at a certain age? Just forget it. Speaking of that, number 2 is love. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. All right. It is early summer here at the time of this recording, and the pollen is still flying high around here in Western New York. Okay, let's do that again. Number 2 is love the age you are at. Love it the most. And why is that? Because the age you are at right now is the only age that actually counts. Where you used to be doesn't matter. Where you're going doesn't matter. Where you are now is what matters most. And really, all we ever have is our moment in time that we are currently living. So remember, the present is a present. And no, I didn't invent that, but I do love that. Okay, number 3, disregard others' opinions, especially their opinions of you or of what they think someone in your age category should be doing or should look like or how they should be acting or what they should be wearing. Just disregard it. Part of the beauty of hitting midlife and later is the fact that this gets easier as you go along. Definitely gets easier with practice. I'm sure you would all agree with me, right? Number 4, be strong enough to let your body serve you. So I'm talking about physical health. You know, of course, as a strength coach, I emphasize strength, but because strength really is the way to keep you moving as best you can as the years pack on. So you want to be able to do things. You want to be able to do anything that you want to do, right? Not being able to do something should not be a function of your age. It's usually a function of being sedentary or not doing that thing and losing that skill. And we don't want to lose those skills. We don't want to lose strength, power, mobility, agility. Those are all things that we want to hold on to because they are going to help us live our own life on our terms. No rocking chairs for us, unless you want to rock a baby to sleep just for a few minutes. Okay. Number 5, be strong enough to let your mind serve you. So number 4 was be strong enough to let your body serve you. Number 5 out of 5, be strong enough to let your mind serve you. So you can think of this in a few different ways. You can think of it in terms of brain health. All right, so you need to take care of your brain. And I don't mean doing crossword puzzles. By the way, if you do a lot of crossword puzzles, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get Alzheimer's. It just means you're going to be very good at doing crossword puzzles. You need to be learning new skills, continuously in order to challenge your brain and help your brain stay sharp. But you also need to be eating for brain health. And we did an episode on eating for brain health. Let's see if I can find it. No, because it was in 2021 and I already erased it. But you can do a search on this podcast for brain health, and I can also put it in the show notes. All right. Another way to help let your mind be strong enough to serve you is to work on your emotional health. All right. And part of that is embracing and accepting your age, but not placing limits on it based on previous generations or based on the beauty and diet industry. Okay, so the big popular wisdom about aging gracefully is that we should age gracefully. Speaking of the diet and fitness and beauty industry, the problem is, I'm going to leave the fitness industry out of this because I don't think I can generalize it. The big problem is they don't really mean it, because in terms of the diet and beauty industry, they want you to want to turn the clock back. In fact, they talk about turning the clock back. They want you to recapture your youth, and they're sending you along the message that that's what you have to do. And if you don't feel desperate enough to do that, then they're going to go out of business. So just remember that. This is all based on the fact that they have deep pockets and they're great at marketing, and they want you to feel guilty and shameful for aging, when in fact there's no reason for that. So I want you to keep that in mind. Challenge yourself to age with joy in your heart, okay? And I always say this, what are they going to write on my gravestone? And some of you know this is an example that for many years I counted macronutrients in order to have a very lean body. And I enjoy having a lean body. I don't enjoy having a very lean body because that requires me to basically do math calculations in order to eat every day. And something like, we made ribs this weekend. I would never have even eaten a rib, because how on earth can you get all the meat off the bone without actually picking it up with your fingers? How am I going to what am I going to do? Bite it off the bone, spit it out, put it on a scale, weigh it, and then eat it? That is disgusting. But you get what I'm talking at? I didn't want to do that. Now, and that didn't bring me joy. Yeah, it was nice to look in the mirror and be very lean, but being lean enough to be healthy is good enough. And it makes me more well-rounded. I think it makes people more comfortable around me. But again, I'm not worried about other people's opinions. I'm worried about my own. And it was just getting to be a drag. So this, for me, is what brings me joy, as an example. And you want something that brings you joy. So I want you to think about this for a minute and not buy into the slogans that talk about turning back the clock. Not even for exercise, right? You're exercising for overall health. We're not exercising to turn back the clock. Yeah, you might appear to be younger than your actual chronological age, but I don't want that to be your number one goal, because I think that's going to rob you of your joy. And the same thing for excessive thinness, right? And by the way, so many people try to be on these diets that are so restrictive. And I am guilty of this, having done this in the past. The problem is Super restriction always, I don't care who you are and if you or what you say, it always, always, always leads to an episode or episodes or prolonged episodes of overeating and binging. So there's that. We're not here to mourn the past. We're here to enjoy the day because today is all we really have. And of course, my favorite singer-songwriter, I don't know if he writes his own songs or not, Pitbull, always says, every day above ground is a good day. And I like to embrace that. So I don't know if he wrote that or someone wrote that for him. But anyways, maybe if you know, you can drop me a message and let me know because we'd like to credit the right person, right? Okay. Aging joyfully is only about having the freedom to move, act, and think on your own terms. It's your own bar standard. You're not working on some standard set by someone, something, or some industry. And by the way, a word about industry. Self-care is an industry, right? Now, I'm not saying self-care is bad. Of course, we need to practice self-care. But doing it in a way that cultivates joy is a much nicer way to do it versus doing it in a way of I should do this, and if I don't do this, you know, I'm shame, I'm guilty, I'm a perfectionist. Just forget all of that. By the way, perfectionism always leads to shame and guilt. Good enough is good enough, okay? So, you know, it's so interesting when you think of this differently, right? I'm not saying the self-care industry should go away. God forbid. I love getting, you know, my manicures and pedicures and having someone assist me with my stretching and whatever else it is that you do, you know, whatever, massages, I don't know, or just taking time to have a cup of tea by yourself or getting whatever. You know, self-care can mean so many different things. It can also mean setting boundaries, by the way, and telling people, you know, thank you, I cannot do that. I'm as busy as I need to be, or setting boundaries for anything, boundaries in general. That is clearly a form of self-care because you're protecting your time. Isn't that interesting? I think that's a really interesting way to think about boundaries in time. So, you know, here's a couple things that you can do to help age joyfully. We know that we need to exercise and move in ways that help keep us strong, mobile, powerful, right? So find a fitness program, any program that you enjoy, and do it with people who you enjoy doing it with. Number 2, eat to honor your body, not to punish it. You know, there are no bad foods. I'm very tired, you know, of people saying carbs are bad. Bacon is bad. This is bad. I don't know what's going to be bad next week. Something will be bad next week. You know, sugar is bad. I mean, obviously some foods have more health benefits than others, but to draw a line in the sand, I think just on number 1, now that we've got a line in the sand and we're not supposed to cross it, what do you think we want to do? We want to cross that line, you know? I remember can't remember when it was, but my kids were little. Some of them, maybe little, maybe teenagers, somewhere in there. And I had really had too much sweets and chocolate what I thought at the time was too much sweets and chocolate over the holidays. And so on January 1, I declared that I was giving up chocolate and I was going to do it. I set a date in February that I was going to enjoy chocolate. And in fact, that date was something that used to, I don't know if they still do this anymore, but it was something called Open That Bottle Night. And that was a day in February where you were supposed to, or you could, if you wanted to participate, open a bottle of wine for no particular reason and enjoy it. And I thought, well, that would be a great night. We'll open a bottle of wine and I'll eat chocolate. Well, because I hadn't had chocolate in all that time, I literally planned my binge. I bought M&Ms. All I remember is the M&Ms, but I know I had lots of different varieties of chocolate. And by the time we got to the wine, can I just tell you, I was sick because I kept sneaking the M&Ms when everyone was doing something else. And it's like, you know, to me, lines in the sand like that fail 100% of the time. And I know not everyone agrees with that, and that's okay if you don't want to agree with that. You know, and I'm not talking about food allergies, That's something different. But this is my personal belief. And yes, it's a big difference from what you have seen me talk about in the previous years. But hey, I'm allowed to change my mind, and so are you. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, number 3, so we talked about finding a fitness program you enjoy and eating to honor your body and be satisfied. So not overly restrictive and also not overly indulgent, right? Learn to satisfy your food. If you love a food, savor it. If you don't, and you're in a situation where you think that you have to eat it, do not eat it. You know, there was a time for years and years and years where, and I really did enjoy this, eating a crunchy cereal. Like Kasha used to have a high protein at the time, a high protein cereal, and I would eat it with yogurt and fruit every day for years. And then I couldn't look at that whole combination of food for years. And then it's kind of ironic. Last week, I kind of was like, oh, I kind of remember that tasting pretty good. So I started eating it again. But it took me, decades before I would come back and want to do that again. So the last thing I want to talk about is making the stories in your head calm you and invigorate you instead of making them inducing shame and guilt. So what I'm saying is, if you decide to step on the scale, for example, no matter what the number is, make that story all about, I'm well enough to get on the scale. I'm well enough that I get to choose what to wear and do and eat. Not, oh my God, I can't believe I'm 5 pounds heavier than I expected to be. You know, you can change the stories in your head anytime you want to. You can choose to believe them or not. But whatever you believe is what you become. So be very careful with what you say, think, do, and believe, because that is what becomes you. And if what you say, think, do, and believe gives you a lot of shame and guilt, then that's how you're going to live your life. And that is going to rob you of joy. So I'm just going to caution you on that. And that's just what I wanted to talk about today was, you know what? Aging gracefully. Take that grace, and we can talk about grace another time in another context, because I really would like to do that, but not aging gracefully. That connotation is something that I would like you to not even think about. Think more about aging joyfully, so that when you look back on your life, you're not going to say, I wish I hadn't restricted myself all those times. I wish I had learned to savor things. You know, and the same thing goes for going, you know, balls to the wall with workouts and then maybe not working out for a period of time. Just do what you can manage. You know, I think rather than having the big swings of the pendulum to like highs and lows and restriction and indulgence, just go with the low waves. Keep it simple, keep it moderate. And if you have any questions and you want to talk about that further, you can certainly drop me a message. I would love to chat about this further. But as we age, let's keep joy in our heart. And remember, the biggest thief of joy, I know you all know this, this is a Roosevelt quote, I believe from Eleanor Roosevelt, is comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. And this, my friend, is what the diet and beauty industry are based on. They are based on you comparing yourself and coming up short. And I just want you to know that you are awesome right like you are today, right now, here in this moment. In fact, I would even say go out and schedule a boudoir shot right now and enjoy it and embrace it. So I will tell you, I actually did, this is off topic, I wasn't planning on sharing this, and I'm certainly not going to share the pictures on social media, but I did go and do a boudoir shot in December, and I will tell you, I said it was for my husband, and I was going to give him a gift. I did buy a book of pictures and give him the gift, but you know what? 100%, it turned out being more for me. It was one of the most empowering things that I have ever done, and I actually have an early podcast on that, and that is with Natalie Sinisgali, and that's the podcast on pivoting. But anyways, I digress. We got off on a tangent. I love to do that. That's okay. That's what we do. Listen, have a great week. Go out and figure out how you can age with joy and enjoy today, because today is all you really have. Ta-ta for now, and I will see you soon, hopefully next Tuesday, on the Air Hug Community Podcast.